I'm Christophe Duquesne, so I'm working with two companies, one being Haken Audio and a broader company of Haken Audio, which is La Voix du Luthier. So you have to know everybody from Haken Audio is also involved in La Voix du Luthier. So first to start with, so Haken Audio is a 3-person company. It's Leopold Haken, the inventor of the Continuum. He's living in US, in Champaign, nearby Chicago. There's Edmond again from Ottawa, Canada. He invented the sound engine here and is doing a lot of sound design. And there's me, the third guy, joined later, but doing some DSP coding also with Leopold and also doing sound design, demonstration, and so on. So we have here 3 continuums. These are the original ones. They are quite big. You have, so as explained introduced by Andreas, it's very expressive, and you have 3 dimensions to control each note. So you have the pressure, you have the width, the depths here, and you have also the full continuous pitch all across the keyboard, so the surface. So and it's polyphonic. And so this is quite a sophisticated instrument. They are really instrument. It's not only a controller. There's a synthesizer inside, so there's a DSP inside. That's true for all of them. So these 2 guys are the full size and the half size are very similar. The only difference is the size. These ones have a lot of sensors. They are Hall effect sensors. So you've got a lot of metallic rods with magnets, and when you put your finger on the surface, you're moving these bars and moving the magnets, and you're moving about 9 to 12 magnets, meaning you give information to about 12 sensors, and you have hundreds of sensors in here. That makes it a quite expensive instrument, even this one. The main cost of this instrument, and they are not known to be a bit expensive, but that's for a good reason. They're very accurate and they have a lot of sensors. But we knew that there were more and more people requesting to have the experience of the feeling of a Continuum, have the sound engine, and be able to play it for cheaper price. That's one of the reasons why we decided to go to that small ContinuuMini. So that's the same philosophy. It has its own sound engine. The sound engine is exactly the same as the 2 big brothers. So whatever you play as a sound on the Continuum, you can play it on Mini. But the surface is much simpler. It's mainly a plate, a metallic plate, and you have here only 4 Hall effect sensors on the sides, where you have several hundreds here, and an FSR sensor. So it's very different in the way it gets the sounds, but it's still very accurate due to the Hall effect sensors. Also, it's not as polyphonic as this one. We call it duo haptic. That means that you can put 2 fingers on the surface and it will react to these 2 fingers. So you play these 2 notes at the same time. That's a maximum of 2 controls, but the engine itself being the same as these ones, the engine is polyphonic, so you always have about 8 voices available here. That means that if you have a long release on the sound, you can play a lot of notes, and the notes are not going to be cut by the other one you play. So that opens also a lot of different playing techniques where you can have a lot of notes played together and have the feeling of having a polyphonic instrument, even if it's only duophonic. That will also allow you, I will do a small demo of it, to have, for example, a sequencer connected here to the input and driving some notes for you, and you will be able to play both this sequence. So that's an important thing. Talking about the connection, you have a USB that is going to power the Mini. So the power is coming from USB, and it also is a MIDI to USB, so you can input any MIDI information to it, or you can control any MIDI device from it. It's MIDI MPE. Maybe you've heard of that new evolution of MIDI, which is also called expressive MIDI. So you can have expressive MIDI from the Mini and drive another Continuum or drive any external sound engine being MP compatible. Of course, you've got the audio stereo, audio out, and you've got an additional connection here. You can connect a pedal to it, so you can have a pedal to continuous pedal to control, to control, give an additional control to the sound. But you also can control, get CV out of there. So there's, for example, a small module from Evaton Technology, a new CVC that can connect to you, and then for each note, you're going to have 4 information: the gate, the pressure, the Y, the rocking, and the X being usually the note. One thing I didn't say, so on the big Continuum, you can move on the Y-axis, so you have the depths here, which is one important part of the sound. You also have that Y on the MIDI. It's a rocking. For example, if I take that, so I'm on the same note, but just by working the plate, I'm changing the sound itself. So it's not as accurate as it's going to be on the full size or half size, but you still have that rocking possibility, which is a very nice feature to control the sound. Talking about the sound engine, so there's a sound engine inside. It's a DSP, and the synthesis engine is mainly matrix modular synthesizer, meaning that you have, like on all the VCS, you have the VCS3, for example, you have these pins that you are going to use to connect the output of a VCO to the input of a filter or whatever. With the main difference is each connection is not just a pin for the connection, it's what we call a formula depending on the pressure, the Y and the X axis. So it's a bit like having a modular synthesizer where each patch chord is going to be controlled by your expression. And also one thing which is very important for this sound engine is that it's not only subtractive synthesis, but there's a lot of physical modeling stuff inside. So you have what we call modal synthesis, waveguide synthesis, so a lot of different synthesis that really going to expand the spectrum of what you can do as sound and go much more in the direction of acoustic sound. So you will hear the set of possible sounds you can do with it, and after, if you want to try them, that's also of course okay. So that's all for now of what I'm going to say about this. When I was playing here, the sound you're hearing here is coming from this device, which we call it the Onde. So the Onde is clearly a tribute to Own Resonator. Probably you heard about the Own Resonator. They had some resonators connected to the instrument, and that's the same idea. So when I do this, you hear a sound that's coming from that body that's built exactly as a guitar body. There is no speaker inside, so what you hear is not speaker sound. It's really soundboard. So there's a soundboard, the red cedar soundboard or express soundboard. We have two type of woods. Another birch soundboard on the back for low frequency. And in fact, you have a coil and a magnet transmitting the vibration to the wood, and what you're hearing here is really the wood itself, that the vibration of the wood. You will be able to come and touch it, and you really feel the vibration of the sound. That makes a huge difference with regular speaker. So a regular speaker is directional. It's just send the sound in front of it. It doesn't spread the sound all over. If you have a violin on the stage or a guitar on the stage, you can hear it from all over, even from far away. If you put a speaker on the stage, you hear the speaker on the front, but if you go on the side or up, you will not hear it anymore. This is something you're going to hear all over exactly as a violin. During the last Superboost, we were on the main hall with just 2 ohms. There was no speaker, just the ohms, and everybody was hearing us all over, and that was fine. Also, it's not expected to be as a speaker. So a speaker is very neutral. You get all the frequency without any difference. You expect to get out what you put inside. Here, you want to have some colored sound. If you go to a string instrument maker, you ask him to have a guitar or a violin with a specific sound. That's the same idea we have here. There is no, we are not trying to have a perfect loud speaker sound. We want to have a colored, very nice sound. So you won't probably be able to play any kind of sound with it, but the sound it's designed for are really going to be great. So to have this working on this device, this one here, it has also a big brother named the Pyramid. You have some pictures here if you want to take this paper, and you have a lot of demonstration on video on internet, and we will bring one to the next Superbus, so you will also be able to hear the big brother at Superbus. So this is a smaller one. It's very light. It's 2.5 kilos, so that's very light. You can take it and go all over. That's easy to take with you. It has a small amp. It's a Class D amplifier here inside with batteries, meaning that you don't need to be powered to make it run. And having the battery here, the Mini is not getting the power from a regular USB. It's getting the power from the Own. So the Own is providing the power to the Mini. And since it's standalone, that means I can go in the middle of the forest and play, and that's fine. So it's going to play on battery. You can last about 8 hours. So if you power an additional instruments, maybe a bit less. But so that's already some time. It has also Bluetooth, so meaning that you can connect your phone or your iPod or your computer directly to it. That's useful. I will also make a demo of it, but because that means that you can, for example, have a backtrack. You play the backtrack and you play over the backtrack. So that's quite convenient. If you can, I don't know if you can see the side, but you have two knobs, being the volume, one for each side. So you have one. The back soundboard is mainly for the low frequency, where the top soundboard is more for the high frequency. We did that kind of difference because if you take a guitar, the soundboard of a guitar, which is mainly that soundboard, you can't ring sounds under 100 hertz. About that's really where the guitar, the acoustic guitar stops. So we wanted to have also any electronic instruments, so we added a second soundboard who is able to go much lower, about 50 hertz for this one. So that's what we have here. So it's fully standalone. I'm going to play a set of small demonstration of sound. So everything I'm going to play is going to be played here on the Mini. The idea was mainly it's new to demonstrate a little bit how it can sound, but you will see that the sound is really similar to, I mean, the direct sound is really similar to what you can have with the Continuum. The main difference is really the control you have on it and the sensor you're controlling it through. So if you know the Continuum, one of the famous sound of the Continuum is the violin sound. So you see, it's it's a ribbon. It looks like a ribbon, and usually you expect a ribbon to be not so easy to play for playing traditional tunes, and that's something you can do. So for me, that was a kind of a challenge at the beginning, because what I just played here is something I usually play on the Continuum. And at the beginning, I thought it was not possible to play it on the Mini, so I practiced a little bit, and then it comes that. That's something which is important for Continuums, for all of them. That's an instrument to practice. The first time I got my Mini, I was trained to the Continuum. I tried to play that tune, didn't succeed. And then playing regularly, you get the technique, and that's okay. But if you have a look to my hand, for example, when you play on a traditional keyboard, your hands are like this. Then I have to rotate my hand here, and I'm playing with the 4 fingers aligned here. That's another playing technique. That's something you need to be trained. So you need a little bit of practice. So this first was very acoustic, but you also can do very non-acoustic stuff. So that's FM synthesis. Okay, so that's very different. Still from that non-speaker, the resonator, and the Continuum Mini. So that was also a demonstration. So I was explaining that the sound engine inside, you have subtractive, you have physical modeling as for the violin before, but you also have FM synthesis, which is something you can do. Like this sound.
Can you make your own?
So yeah, you can do, if you have time, I will just give a small demo. So to do your own preset, you need to connect a computer. So when you're done, you don't need any more of the computer. But to design a sound, you need the computer.
So you have an editor or something?
So you have a software editor, which is basically Max MSP patch, a big one.
It's the same as for the big ones.
Yeah. So the same editor, you use exactly this. In fact, it's even the same firmware. So whatever sound you design here, you can put it on there or vice versa. Usually, you're going to tune it because Y is different, the pressure is a bit different. So, but that's just a matter of tuning. The sound is really going to work the same way. So, other way of playing. So that's physical modeling here. When you say can play drum even with a small surface like this one. Maybe you've seen where I was playing. I was also using that octave switch we have here. I will do other demonstration with the octave switch. It's small. You have these 2 octaves. That's not huge, but since you have that octave switch, you can really easily reach a much wider range of notes. So that's very convenient. And also, you've seen when to change preset, I just using these plus and minus buttons here. Yeah, go to the next one here. So back to physical modeling. That's an interesting sound also because you see here I'm doing small taps, but if I go on pressing, there's something else coming on. So that's kind of layer, but the layer, it's not a layer of just things going over the others. That's just the way you play them that triggers some sound or not. Okay. You see that? Okay. Thank you very much. That's really about expression. So on that same sound, so you see, I was saying I have 8 waves of polyphony. That means that in fact, when I do this, you can hear several notes at the same time. It's not only 2. You have 6 or 4. And then when I'm playing some notes, I'm just jumping from note, but so you can slide, or you can jump, or you can start sliding, or you can attack with a slide. That means that that's true with all continuums. There's one thing we call articulation, which is very important. That on a keyboard, you just jump from note to note. On the violin, you can decide if you slide or if you jump from one note to the other. And that's the same thing here. Every time you play a tune, you have to ask you a lot of additional questions about expression and choose kind of trajectory to move from one note to the other. And that's very important for the final result and the final expression you can have. So this is a sound where the rocking is important. So when I move from up, down to up and rocking the bar, I'm triggering. So that's another type of expression. You have to know also, if you play on a violin, if you play on one side or the other, the way you interact with your instrument is different because of the physics of the instrument. And that's true with a lot of instruments. All notes are not exactly behaving the same way depending on where you're. And this is a bit the same thing here. For example, to really fully control the rocking, it's much easier on the center than on the side. That's just because of the physics of it. That means also when you play the continuum, that's something you need to practice. You will not play exactly the same way if you play here or if you play in the middle. That's something you need to integrate. That's not like as a keyboard you can play the same way all over. On this ContinuuMini, you play differently depending on if you're on the center or if you're on the side. Another sound where That's mainly textures, but the working is going to be important too. So that's also to give you ideas of what you can do with this sound engine. You see, you've got that pad here with some randomly triggers kind of bells, and then there is a voice appearing. If I rock on the top, the pad is disappearing, and then there's other random noise in the background. So I have some kind of four sounds together that are appearing and more or less randomly, but also controlled by the surface. So that's one of the power of the sound engine. Okay, let's go to something quite different. You can play some rhythmic things with this. So that's also sound where if I play or if I tap, it's going to be very different. So still you say the very different music style, and you can play this. You say if you want to play rhythmic bass with a mini, that's something you can do. It takes a lot of time to practice, but that's definitely something you can do. So a nice big sound, synthetic one. Also, you see, everything is really coming from that from la Voix du Luthier, and you see there are some very deep bass, some very thin sounds, some very big ones, and everything is probably rendered. This octave switch. So if I go down and then while maintaining that note I go up, I still have that low note and here. Yes, that means that when I did the change, so the note should be there, and if I keep it while I have my hand on the surface, it won't change. It changes only if I release and play again. So that means you can set a note, and then since you have that pressure, you can keep it very low if you don't want to hear it, and then you have all the dynamic range. So another very different type of sound. So that's still only this guy working together. So I'm impressed. So here I've kind of split the area in three, one with the boom boom, here the bass drum plus the kind of snare, a rim shot, and if I rock, I have a filter on it. If you want to play flute, you can hear also how accurate is the pitch control. Very small move I do here, you hear the pitch. And that's when you play a flute, the blowing way you have, you put a bit of pressure of your lips and of your breath, you're going to go out of tune and go around. That's really something you can play in a very different way, but on the continuum. Okay, so I have another sound here. So remember, that's the same. So that's also, you hear that the way the sound here is, it's exactly the same sound. You hear it from speakers here, and you hear it from the soundboard here. So you really hear the color of that resonator. What I did here, so I'm going to use the iPad. I didn't use it for up to now. I have a small connection, a small hub that connect my iPad to the Mini. Don't know if you see it on the data probably. So there's a nice policy ARP step sequencer here, which is connected to the input here, meaning that I can trigger some notes here. So I started it, but there is no velocity here. I'm just going to put softly a bit of. So that's really the sound engine here from the Mini, which is playing. No, that's still only with the MIDI. So same sound engine, just mixed of the sequencer and playing directly over it.
Sorry, I didn't understand. The sound is coming from the iPad now, or
No,
only from the?
only from the MIDI. So this is just, if you know this app, is Poly App Step Sequencer. So it's just a MIDI sequencer, and it's connected to the input here. Thanks to that small box.
So it's sending MIDI over.
So it's sending MIDI. So what you hear is only the MIDI playing, but that just a demonstration of the fact that you really can do very sophisticated things just with that sound engine.
Sound engine from
Yeah,
two different devices.
Yeah, exactly. So if I made a mistake while playing, and if I change the sound, that's really these guys which is playing. Another thing I wanted to show, and then that's going to be a bit more related to the Onde. So as said before, the Onde is Bluetooth. That means you can connect any Bluetooth source to it. So here I have a small FX Twin tune. It could be anything else, but I like this one. So if I and so it's playing, and I can play over it. Okay, so thanks very much to Apex Twin. And so you see, that's also another way to use it. So yeah, that can be your own tune, but if you want to use any tune you want to play over it, that's a nice way to use these guys. Of course, you can listen to your own music on the resonator. It will not sound the same way as it's not designed to be a speaker, but for sounds like these ones, for example, from Apex Twin.
Can you show the difference of the sides?
Yeah, sure.
How they sound?
Well, let's take some Haken Continuum. So that's the back sound. And that's the front. So you really kind of mix. So it's all mobile, so you can put it that way. I have these two small things here. That's, in fact, I was putting it that way because these are just foots that can be attached there, and then you can have it standing on this side or on this side or flat like this. We also have a stand, so you can attach it to a stand, having one instrument on the top, another one under. So there's hundreds of ways of you can attach it to X stands or whatever. So it's also designed so here it's Kodak mounting screw. That I mean any screw used for camera mounting is going to be work with the Own. So that's hundreds of possible ways of mounting it, which is quite interesting too. This is a recent. This is sound I did recently. Maybe you know a player, piano player up to now, and he now has a Continuum named Jean-Philippe Riquel. He's quite famous in France. He's playing with a lot of African musicians. And he asked me for an Ngoni sound, so I did it. It sounds a bit different from an Ngoni on the Mini because of the way of playing it. It's closer to the Ngoni on the. So I don't know if you know this Ngoni instrument. It's typical African instrument, and I'm using it here in a way which is not the traditional way of using Ngoni, but that's a sound I like. You see, that's a sound where when I move on the press axis, I put some kind of energy on the string. So, thank you. So you see here we really have a physical modeling sound through the resonator. I guess if you close your eyes, you can say it's an electronic instrument. It's really sounding exactly as on the venue where you have an acoustic player in front of you. Just a few sounds to show. Oh, sorry. There's some voice-like sound, or still very abstract sound. You see it from here, but very small moves on the surface really makes very big difference on the sound from a very small, tiny sound to huge one. You see that sound? I'm not using it in a traditional way. I have to scratch the surface. final sound. Oh, sorry. Here it is, the last ones were mainly to give other type of sounds. But in fact, in the Mini and the Continuum, you have about 350 sounds, and every year we provide a new firmware, and we add 20, 50 sounds, so it's growing and growing and growing. And so there's sufficient memory to hold this, and also we are adding new models. We are working all together on a new physical modeling model that will be probably demonstrate for next Continuum. So every year we have an event where all the Continuum players are gathering. Last year it was in Paris, and this year it's going to be in Nashville in North Carolina, so just near to Bob Moog factory, the Moog factory, and so we will probably have that new physical model ready. So that means when you get Continuum, it's not just as it is; it's evolving all the time. We're improving the software, providing new presets. So it's also fully alive. We are not like a lot of other companies who try to come every year with a new product. We are coming every year with an improved version of the previous one, but not a new one. So we are really focusing on improving things and getting them better and better and better, and that's going to be the same philosophy for La Voix du Luthier. So for La Voix du Luthier, we have the pyramid and the Own for now. There will be you will have the ability to have custom version of them, so specific colors or specific tunings if you ask. It will be the ideal is also to be like with a string instrument maker. The guitar player go and see his string instrument maker. You will be able to come and see us and say, okay, I would like a bit a different one with different sounds or whatever. So I think I was longer than I was expecting. I don't want to bother you so too long. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much.